Afternoon all, I hope we're okay. I'm going to try and battle with the food coma that you might be going through now. And I'm going to try and talk through today actually how I think you could unlock growth within your organisation. And I talk to a lot of partners, both big and small. I tend to actually talk to a lot of small ones because I prefer that conversation. They're more interesting organisations to speak to. And what I try and do is help them understand how through security they're able to grow their business. I have some experience in being able to do that. I myself, I am part of a small business. My wife is a cake decorator and I am head of quality assurance, which means I basically eat cakes. That also means that I need to go to the gym almost every day, although my dad might, you probably can't tell. And also need to go running. So I have some understanding of small business. I am also a partner myself, so a Microsoft partner. I have about 5 or 6 very important customers, which are basically my friends, and a few of my relatives, and a few small businesses that kind of live around near me. So I have some understanding of the interesting conversations you guys will have with some of those end customers. And the last bit for my sins, I was at Microsoft for about 17 years on and off. Surprising, I know, with my youthful legs that it can possibly be that long, but it is. And now I work at Skycake as a SE or a sales engineer. I'm talking to partners all day, every day about what they do and how I can help them grow with their customers. And so that's what I want to go through today. And so my question to you, going straight in there, would be, are you talking, or I'm saying you should be talking to your customers about Secure Score, or at least about security? And that's hopefully something that you hear from the other vendors. Certainly you would hear that from Microsoft. Microsoft themselves have something called Mission 65. They're trying to get all of their partners to get to their customers to a point where they have 65% of the things they could implement security-wise, and to get that secure score up effectively. But actually, a lot of the customers, a lot of your customers, a lot of your potential customers regards security to be a very important thing. I know that's perhaps obvious, but it does surprise me that when I speak to a varying set of partners, it's not necessarily the first kind of conversation that they would be having with or end organisations. To their customers. And actually, not many of those Microsoft partners are actually selling those services, but a lot of them are thinking about that's the next thing they need to do. And so actually, I would again encourage you to think, maybe security is something that you weave into your basic offerings, but also, is there a separate security service that you could be thinking about? When you look at that, there's a couple of things that you're going to need to think about. So the first one I would say, and this was kind of mentioned today, is have a think about tooling. So I'm going to go through some of the MSP tooling and the questions you should be asking yourself. And obviously as I go through those, I have at least one suggestion of MSP tooling that you should go for. But certainly as you're speaking to Giacom, because Giacom are going to be able to help you out with this, have a think about the MSP tooling you need in place in order to be able to deploy security to your customers. And then the second thing that you need to think about is actually, do I need to be doing like a basic level of security? So again, Gemma and Microsoft mentioned that basic hygiene for basic security hygiene, things like MFA, is something you should be thinking about when you're talking to your customers and potentially just rolling out as like a base. Because again, that works towards the whole Mission 65 thing that Microsoft has. And so essentially, start talking to your customers about security, because if you're not, pretty much somebody else is. Probably somebody else in this room, maybe even the person next to you, unless you work with them, and then you know whether they're speaking to your customers about security. And then the next thing to think about is actually, what is the fix? And I'm going to go through each of these. So the first thing to figure out is actually which customers do you need to work with first. So if you've got 10 customers, it's quite obvious. If if you've got 100 customers, which a lot of my partners are in that kind of level, it's actually quite hard to figure out who you need to go and speak to first. So start to think about how you might prioritise. The next thing you need to think about is actually improving that baseline. As Microsoft put it, that basic hygiene and security. And how are you going to go and deploy that basic level of hygiene and security, improving their secure score and posture as quickly as possible. The next thing to think about is engaging customers on a regular basis about security. It's kind of obvious perhaps to you all that it's not a one-time conversation. So you need some MSP tooling that gives you a way to constantly go back to the customer and have a conversation about security. And that's for two reasons, right? Number one, you need to be able to ensure that their customer is secure. And perhaps number two, you want to reduce churn. And actually a third thing is there's maybe more services you can offer them, more products that you could talk to them about. So look at it as a reason to constantly go back, talk about security, and understand the opportunity. And then the last one is actually maybe the MSP tooling should give you an opportunity to find additional services revenue. So they're the 4 things that I'm going to kind of go through today to give you an idea of where I think you need to think. And actually, I would recommend speaking to Giacom and the other vendors here to get a good idea of how you might have those conversations. So the first one I want to talk about is prioritising. So we have a partner that we work with at the minute, and they needed to prioritise the customers that they're going to work on, to figure out who had the worst secure score, the people that they need to speak to first. And so this partner of ours, they employed their son, right, to do this. So what their son would do is, over the summer, he'd come in. I think he got £50 a day, if I remember correctly, or it might have been a £50 just straight fee. It was some amount of money that this guy's son had in order to essentially log into each of the customers. You know, they have 100 plus customers, right? Log into each of the customers, log into the M365 admin center, go find the secure score, write it down in a spreadsheet, close it down, go to the next customer, right? And so before that, they had no way of prioritizing and understanding any of the secure score status for any of their customers. And so the first thing he thought he needed to do is to be able to prioritize, but unfortunately the way to do that was to pay his son. And so actually, the good thing now is he's using our solution in order to be able to do that. Obviously, the bad thing is we've made his son kind of redundant, as it were, so he's now having to earn money elsewhere. But on the more positive side, they're able to now focus on the type of customers that they need to ensure are more secure quicker. And actually, the ones that are in a pretty good position, they don't need to worry about. And on this diagram, effectively, that large, tall red block, up the top, that's the top 10% of my customers. These are my fake customers, obviously. My actual customers would probably have a lower score. But the top 10% of customers with a high score. So interestingly enough, just as an aside, those tend to be customers usually for partners, because I see maybe 10, 15 partners a week. They tend to be the ones that have the lower Microsoft SKUs, so like a basic SKU or standard rather. And so that's telling you almost the ones that you've done all of the great work on, and there isn't much you can do to improve. There's not a lot of kind of wiggle room in order to be able to improve them. Down the bottom of that column in red is the bottom 10%, and they're the ones usually actually where they have the customer has a more higher premium SKU. They're the ones that actually the partner should focus on, because there's more you can switch on and more you can secure. How you go about doing that is like the next question, obviously, but they're the ones that you want to prioritize. So when you're looking at MSP tooling, think about how does this help me prioritize the customers that I'm going to work on. The other funny aside that I see is usually
All partners, when they use this solution, they'll add their customers, and they normally add their own tenant. And I'd say at least 70% of the time, the partner's own M365 tenant is in that bottom red piece there. And then they usually say to me, oh yeah, no, we're working on it, and it's this. I'm like, okay, yeah, no worries. They hopefully then use the solution then to go fix that. But use this, or have your MSP tooling as a means, ask the question of that vendor, how can you help me prioritize the people that I'm going to work with? And then the next thing is actually, I need to go fix that problem, right? Lovely, I know who I need to work with. How do I go and fix that? And so in many instances, I guess the tools that are default, so the Microsoft tools, will give you some direction in the way that you need to go, but it's not necessarily obvious. That gets a lot better with things like Lighthouse. And Lighthouse is great, like some ex-friends of mine from Microsoft are using Lighthouse. But that's very much a kind of walled, railed system, and it's going to tell you what it knows how to fix, but won't kind of branch outside of that. And so for us, we have the bit on the right-hand side that is in green, and so that is a solution you can click on straight to go and fix the issues that you're seeing on the left-hand side. So think about when you're looking at MSP tooling, how do I use that tooling to figure out of all of my customers, which are the ones to work with, which are the ones that have the lowest secure score or percentage of secure score against max. And then the second bit is, how easy is it going to help me kind of go and fix that particular issue? And the fixing should be something simple, should be quick, and it should be something that you can do across multiple customers. So it's great that it might say, here's an article, go read this article. I'm imagining most of you don't have the time to go do that. So actually, have a think about whether the MSP tooling you're using or you're looking at is going to give you a suggestion to the fix. And the other bit is actually, how regularly is that updated? So on our side, we update about every 2 weeks. That makes an interesting thing for me because every 2 weeks I need to talk about a different subject when we've updated what's in there. But these solutions should be quick to deploy and should be simple enough that almost anybody can run them. So I'm kind of conscious that yes, you could, as a very intelligent and experienced people, go and deploy a fix to go on, switch on mailbox auditing, or the unified audit log, which is a nice, good free thing to go switch on to improve your secure score for your customers. But you kind of know what you're doing. And actually, you want to be in a position where actually anyone, or almost anyone within your organization, is able to go and do that as a standard. And so, yes, know the prioritization, but next, have an easy fix. And on the left-hand side here, those elements in red, they're all the things for secure score recommendations we will go fix. And actually, now we have a list of 150 items to go check, and 150 items, maybe if it's like really badly set up, that you could go apply a fix to as well. And they're part of something called the CIS baseline. So anybody who looks at the CIS baseline, we're able to do that. Anybody that's not heard of this CIS baseline, definitely go and have a look at the CIS baseline. It's a good list of things that you probably should be doing for M365, Microsoft 365 with your customer base. But the important thing is actually how quickly can I run that? So think about whether that tooling, the piece on the right-hand side, can I go select a bunch of customers, click very quickly, and have that go and make those changes immediately? And ultimately, what you want to avoid, which hopefully you're not doing too much at the minute, is logging into each tenant separately to go and make those changes and using a more expensive resource to do that. Actually, if I can go through all of my customers at once, and I can go and make all of those changes and improve that secure score very quickly, that's a great place to be. It's going to take a job that maybe would take 5 or 6 hours into 5 or 6 minutes. Whether you pass that cost saving on to your end customer or not is entirely up to you. But some people do say, like, well, if you're saving all this time, how am I going to charge people as much? You can still charge them the same, right? Just kind of know that. MSP tooling that you're going to use allow you to deliver that fix quickly. So next thing I want to talk through is actually how do you continuously then engage with the end customer. So as we know, this is not like a one-off conversation you're going to have. Security, as we've all talked about, is like an ongoing thing. And actually, you need to, in some respect, be talking to your customers about security, or at least have that an element of your conversation to continuously engage them. And that engaging is good because they remember that you're there and all the great work that you're doing with them, but also it's to go and get extra services and extra revenue out of them as well. So any MSP tooling, you can guess MSP tooling is the important thing here. Any MSP tooling that you're looking at, think about how does that show the great work that I do. So in the red on the left-hand side, that's showing the customer their secure score and actually their secure score over time. Now that information is relatively easily available within the M365 admin console, but do you want your account managers, your customer success managers, whatever you call them, going into the admin console every day, clicking about to find this sort of stuff? Probably no. That's something that should come to them. And so I have lots of partners that use this as an account management tool to kind of retain their customers, to say, actually, the stuff on the left-hand side, this is the great score that we have at the minute, and we're developing it over time as well. And actually, the bottom middle and bottom right box, they tell you how many, they tell the customer how many alerts have popped up and how many things you have fixed in the background for them. So really, understand and appreciate whether your MSP tooling is able to supply the account management team the right people with the information they have to retain the customer and show the great work that they're doing. But of course, there's the great work, and that's good, must retain customer. But the next thing to think about is actually, how do I ensure that, how do I go and find extra opportunity? And on the right-hand side in the green, that's listing all of the secure score actions or recommendations the customer should go, or I as the partner should help the customer fix. And so that is your opportunity list of either switching on services that are there, or actually maybe upselling to additional licensing and therefore additional services as well. So make sure the MSP tooling that you're using is going to help them, is going to help your employees have a conversation around secure score. And then the last bit to kind of talk you through is actually discovering more services revenue. So oddly enough, within your customer tenants, there is a raft of information that is super useful to be able to discover what you could actually upsell services-wise or additional services to your customers. It's just locked away behind that Microsoft 365 console. And if you've got 2 customers, that's easy to see. But if you've got 200, it's really hard to find that information. So have a think about whether the tooling, SkyKit Cloud Manager in our instance, is able to grab that for you. We actually have a large number of reports, and we're adding them over time. But this one in particular is the one that tends to like ring true for most the partners that I speak to. And what it does is on the very left-hand side, it's showing me a list of users and the licenses that they have. And I'm sure you're all well over that. You know all of your customers and the licenses that they have. But the bit on the very far right that's kind of squared or highlighted in green is showing you the disabled services they have. So the stuff they've paid for but hasn't been switched on. Now, whether you tell the customer about those or you just engage with them in a conversation around that, that right box there is pretty much a list of opportunity, leads that you could pass on to the sales team to say, go speak to X customer, maybe it's the account manager, but go speak to X customer and start talking to them about DLP. In this instance, most of the secure score high items in there. And so this report, plus a bunch of others, but this report's a really good one, is a way of being able to show you the additional services revenue you might be able to get. So have a good think about whether the tooling that you're using, and especially if you don't have any tooling at the minute, whether any of those are going to help you go and discover new revenue as well. And with that, that was my very kind of brief piece around understanding your choices around MSP tooling, and in particular, how you should find the right kind of tool, the right piece of software, the right solution, the right partner or vendor to be able to ensure that you can grow your business, certainly into the security space if it's not something you're currently doing. And the way to think about it is prioritize, improve, so improving the secure score, making sure you engage your customer, and additional services. And if you can't remember that, just remember pies, okay? Prioritize, improve, engage, and services. And luckily, you're after food, so it doesn't make you hungry, me telling you this. And with that, before I hand back to Mike at Giacom, are there any questions, any comments, but particularly any questions that I can answer for you while I'm here? Yep.
That was quite focused around Microsoft.
Yep.
But does it plug into other vendors as well? For example, Bitdefender has a really good endpoint misconfiguration tool,
Yep.
Which is also a great thing.
Yeah.
Is that something Skykick has?
Yeah, it's a good question. So we pull the information from the Microsoft side. Thank you. I did have that in my head to try and say, but it slipped. So yes, so we can grab the information from Microsoft and those recommendations, right? And there's two elements to it. So the recommendation, if it's a hardcore Microsoft partner and they only do Microsoft solutions, then yes, we can help them switch it on with that. The other opportunity, to your point, is actually maybe it discovers issues that Microsoft can, but maybe there's extra licensing required, or it's not the direction the partner wants to go into. So you would certainly use Skykick Cloud Manager to discover what should be changed. And then when you find that recommendation, if actually it's Bitdefender or any of the other kind of vendors here, then entirely you should use, you should think about deploying those. The other interesting bit then, which is like a strange nuance, is actually if you deploy something for Bitdefender or instead of safe links, for example, Microsoft won't necessarily recognize that as being fixed. And there is a way of actually changing that. You set the recommended action status. I suspect that's buried deep somewhere in the system. And so actually, if you have in your customer base a bunch of customers that have a great an okay secure score, you've deployed a bunch of third-party additional vendors to lock it down even more, like the vendors here today, you could actually use Cloud Manager to go through and say, yep, I want an extra 10 points for 8 points for safe links, because actually I've got a third party that's dealt with that already. And then instantly you're upping the score, plus also you're getting additional revenue through that third party. But we could very much be the discovery mechanism in order for you to sell those additional services.